So hello and welcome back to my channel. Today is kind of just a little sit down chat about something that has been rocking our world a little bit at the moment, which is the story of the submersible, if I'm saying that right, that went missing and then subsequently we found out has imploded in the ocean near the Titanic ruins, right? So let me just say that I never used to watch the news. I only really started to watch the news when I married my husband because he is an avid Sky News watcher. So I'm not somebody that really likes to get invested in news stories particularly because I can find it a little bit upsetting, I can find it a little bit sad, and I can find it a bit overwhelming, that constant loop of the things that are going wrong in the world, right? But there have been two stories lately that have really interested me. One was the story of I think it was 3 or 4 children that were found in the jungle after having been missing for 40 nights, I think it was, 40 days, 40 nights, right? After a plane crash where their mum was killed and where the pilot was killed. But they managed to survive, right, and they were rescued. So that story was such a beautiful story of nature and higher energies looking after these children and them being rescued ultimately, right? And then it was only a few weeks later, I think, that we have the story of the submersible which has gone missing down like in the depths of the ocean, right? And we've all been on the edge of our seats for most of the week, I think, kind of imagining the worst about what could have happened to them. You know, I found it really upsetting thinking about how uncomfortable they would be, right? But then ultimately we found out that there was probably an implosion of the vessel very shortly after it descended into the ocean, before they probably even reached the Titanic, right? And in some ways there is a relief that they didn't suffer, right? I definitely feel that. And there are all kinds of things flying around the news right now, blame assigning and just trying to work out what went wrong and trying to allocate accountability or responsibility. So to say all that, this video is not about any of that, right? From the minute I heard the story, the thing that touched me the most was the fact that there was a 19-year-old on board. And I felt like I could feel this 19-year-old's fear for the last week, right? And even though we know that they probably perished last weekend, last Sunday, I could feel that fear of his throughout the week. And I said to quite a few people, I said, you know, he wasn't supposed to be there. I felt really strongly that the other men had made a choice to be there to do this. It was their life's work, it was their life's mission, it was their life's passion. But this 19-year-old hadn't really lived his life yet. He hadn't really had a life yet. And so it didn't feel right at all to me that he should be there. And yesterday we're now seeing reports and interviews of his aunt who said that actually, yeah, he was really terrified to go down and that he actually went down as like a Father's Day present for his father. And this is not to assign blame to his father, because I don't believe that, you know, nobody thought that this would happen, okay? And he probably thought it would be a once in a lifetime opportunity. But what I do want to talk about is the kind of injustice of the 19-year-old's free will, okay? So I'm very interested in the concept of free will, in the fact that as human beings, we're able to make choices on a day-to-day basis, ranging from small to big, about what we want to do with our lives, right? But then, obviously, ultimately, death comes along to all of us. Illness sometimes comes to us. Big things happen that we have no control over whatsoever, right? And I'm very interested about the intersection between those things. And this situation really highlights that for me, because we have 5 people aboard that vessel. 4 of them made a choice to go down there and to look at this wreckage. That was something they were passionate about. I'm sure they knew the risks, even if they didn't realise that something awful would happen to them. And then we have this 19-year-old boy who, just by the very virtue of age, would not have really had a full grasp of what he was letting himself in for. And, you know, I feel that he was very scared. I feel that this went against his own actual free will. That if he'd felt like he could exercise his free will, that he wouldn't have gone down. And maybe he would have stopped them from going down also, right? So there was an overriding of his free will, there was an overriding of his intuition, there was an overriding of his gut instinct. And that is so important for us to know, and that is something that I want us all to think about, right? We have so much more control over our lives than we think, even when awful things happen to us. As long as we're still breathing, we have the control to act in a certain way to it, to respond in a certain way to it, right? We have control over our lives, despite what happens to us. We have control on how we meet every single moment. And when that control is taken away from you, like it was for this 19-year-old boy, then the consequences can be catastrophic. So I want you to think about the ways in which you take control of your own life, but I also want you to be really honest with yourself and think about any of the ways that you may be trying to exert your free will onto someone else, right? Let other people in your life make their own decisions and choices, even if it's something that scares you, that you don't want, that doesn't work for you. Please respect the autonomy of others to make choices over their lives, because you never know when a choice like that could save their life. Right? And that's all I really wanted to talk to you about today. It's a story that's moved me all week. I know there is a lot of dialogue about it, but I wanted to just zoom in on this little thing. I just wanted to zoom in on this boy who went down there not really knowing what he was in for, not really wanting to go down there at all really, and being naturally scared, and how that his concerns were overridden, and how we can learn from that in our own lives going forward and really respect a human being's right to free will. All right, lots of love, take care.